All right, for those of you keeping score at home, this is episode 13 of the Retro Game Club podcast. And stay tuned. Later on in this episode, Shigeru Miyamoto will be appearing. But for now, you are stuck with me and Rob.
Hey, how's it going? It's been a while.
Yeah. I was traveling for work last week, so it was a little tough for me to record. So it's my fault.
Yeah, no, sometimes a break is good. We never promised weekly episodes.
No.
In fact, we guaranteed against it.
Just about, yeah. We things have been very busy lately. The nice thing about traveling, though, is I do get to spend some quality time with my Nintendo DS, especially when every flight that I have is delayed for several hours due to issues that should never happen. So, actually, the funniest, and this was not on this trip, but I did have a trip once. It was on Air Canada, which is actually the worst airline I've flown on. Apologies to any Air Canada employees out there. Where we were sitting on the runway because they couldn't find the pilot.
Like, they had seen him, and he was gone, or he never showed up, or...
The pilot did not show up. He was allegedly at the airport, but they did not know where he is. And then he eventually did show up. As long as he wasn't at the bar, I guess this is okay.
Yeah. Maybe he was trapped in the bathroom, who knows? That's funny, though.
Maybe. So, I didn't play anything super retro. I played this, I guess it's got to be at least 10-year-old DS game now called 999. It's it's supposed to be an escape room game, but there's not a whole lot of escape room in it. It's more like an interactive novel, because like the escape room portion, the puzzles are pretty simple. You know, I was expecting like this was me like a Myst style game with really bizarre puzzles that you had to get a 100-page hint book for.
Had you checked out that game before, or this is the first time getting into it?
First time I played it. It's been on my backlog for a long time. And I know it was good enough that, you know, fans demanded a sequel, and there's some sort of a sequel for it. Also, I don't think I'll try the sequel. I mean, overall, it was kind of a neat game. And the story was all right. It was just kind of different than what I was expecting, that's all. You been up to anything good?
Yeah, I grabbed a lot on Sony's E3 PSN sale. Today I took the family, well, they took me, because it's Father's Day, I guess, to the Henry Ford Museum. And so my kid got to see a bunch of airplanes, and I got to see, they have a Star Trek exhibit there till September. That was kind of fun. I got to see the new Godzilla movie, and it's a Godzilla movie. You know, there's not much. It was a Godzilla movie. If you like Godzilla movies, you like this movie. Nothing wrong with it at all. And I been diving into Breath of the Wild before the big new announcement. So that's been fun. A lot more side quests I forgot than I originally thought. And kind of most importantly, yesterday I took my kid to my buddy Randy has a toy show twice a year called Nerd Out in Ferndale, Michigan. And took my kid to that to visit some buddies there, and I picked up, I don't know if you could see that.
Oh, wow, that is old. It's a Pac-Man...
It's like a water game.
Water game, yeah.
With no water in it.
I've never even seen that.
So I have to find some parts for this. So it's made by Tommy. It's this little yellow Pac-Man thing with Pac-Man eating a cherry. And you're supposed to kind of move it around like one of those little puzzle games with little, you know, like metal pebbles in it. But it's supposed to have water in it. I saw it. I never saw one of these before. I don't see a copyright on it, but yeah, I might try to find some parts for it. And I also, we are talking about a crossover episode. My buddy Randy has a video podcast, I guess you'd call that a webcast, on YouTube called Nerd Out, KNERDOUT, where he talks about toys, collectibles. So might be cool to get on there and possibly have him on here sometime. And
yeah, there's a lot of overlap between, you know, classic toys and classic games, especially like the Pac-Man stuff is obviously a, you know, an immediate example.
Oh, totally. And there's so much Nintendo stuff, you know, released in the past. But But speaking of podcasts, I also started listening to the 7800 Game by Game and Shinto's Jaguar Game by Game. Have been very much enjoying both of those. So shout outs to those. If you like video games at all, definitely listen to those.
Yeah, the 7800 Game by Game podcast is done with new episodes because they'll play through every single game, including obscure and homebrew stuff, I believe. Did he do some homebrew? Yeah, so there's new. I don't know if he would like do another episode if a new homebrew game came out. Probably not. But it's a fun listen.
Yeah, they're all funny guys and very professional podcasts. A lot of cool editing and stuff, and they actually research their topics, unlike us.
Yeah,
but we're more of a talk show, I think. You know what I mean? We're just kind of hanging out. Nothing to put our podcast down about, but
yeah. I don't like doing research.
No.
I like to just be handed an agenda I've never seen before, and I just have to pretend like I'm an expert on it.
Yep, kind of like every meeting I have at work too.
Yes.
But yeah, this might be an epic episode. We have lots of news. E3 shockingly had a lot of retro news.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I usually don't pay attention to E3, but for some reason I paid attention to it a lot this year. I don't know what it was about E3 this year that I was interested in it, because like Sony wasn't there, if I remember correctly, and I was kind of interested, what was coming out for PS4 or I guess the upcoming PS5. But despite that, I watched a number of the announcements, and I guess we'll be talking about 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah, and you and I traded some texts this week, which, I really didn't think anything retro would be in it, but hey, pretty cool. Should we dive into it?
Yeah, so I think the biggest news is the TurboGrafx-16 Mini console.
Yeah, our Facebook page lit up about this.
Yeah.
People seem excited. Listeners of our podcast know I have a problem where I can't not buy something like this, so I will absolutely be buying this. Not all the games are announced so far. R-Type, New Adventure Island, Ninja Spirit, one of my favorites, Eastbook 1 and 2, Dungeon Explorer, and Alien Crush.
Yeah, so I don't know what they're going to charge for the system yet, but if you were to try and buy those games right now, the combined cost of those games is definitely going to be more than whatever they charge for the system. I'm of course curious about the quality. I mean, a lot of the Sega repro systems over the years have been kind of mixed quality. I know like this new one they're doing is supposed to be super duper high end, awesome quality or whatever. But because I think Nintendo kind of set the bar on what people now expect for quality on these systems, like quality in terms of emulation quality and controller quality. And I think maybe people are tired of buying like all the AT games and Jack specific stuff, and want a really good version of these systems.
Yeah, and obviously, great flawless emulation. I did hear someone say, I'm not going to buy this because I don't want to support, the current Konami, but it's kind of like this is stuff we've been asking them to do. You know what I mean? They're re-releasing some games and collections. They're doing stuff like this. Like, we've been asking them to do this, so I kind of feel like I owe it to them to buy this because it's not a big pachinko machine.
Right. It's not like Konami saying all proceeds are going to support child labor, right? Like, what do you mean you don't want to support Konami? Like, what has Konami done to you exactly? I can say, like, if you think a company's actually actively doing evil things, you don't support them, fine. But this is just, you don't like what they're doing with their IP. Well, now they're doing something with their IP. And some of it, I know, like, Falcom on their page had an announcement about, the Japanese equivalent, the PC Engine Mini. So obviously they had to do their, like, my theory and why this was taking a while is that they probably had to clear rights to some of these games because even though Hudson did the ports for all these and Konami owns Hudson, you probably still had to get Falcom's permission to sell their games, and that a number of these other games are probably in that same state. I don't remember who the original developer of Ninja Spirit is. R-Type was IREM. I don't remember if IREM's still a company or if somebody bought them. So, there's a whole lot of rights and stuff they had to clear. So, it'll be interesting to see what they can and can't include.
And they didn't announce if this is a wireless controller. I don't know if like Alien Crush or R-Type, I forget if R-Type is, if any of them are 2-player games, because I don't see a TurboTap Mini Classic being announced with this.
Yeah, if they are 2-player, it's not 2-player concurrent. So I suspect it's not. Now the sad thing is, I actually sort of like I mean, I have an original TurboGrafx. I would actually think I would like to get the Japanese or core graphics, the PC Engine or PC Engine core graphics variants, just because I like the way those look a little better. But I assume those aren't going to be sold in America. I guess I could import them. We'll have to see. It depends how they distribute this too. Are they going to do pre-orders like Sega's doing pre-orders for their new system, right?
Yes, it's already on Amazon and all that.
Yeah, so that takes care of the scalping problem if you just in advance figure out how many people want. My prediction is this will probably outsell the PlayStation Classic, at least at full price.
Yeah, because PlayStation Classic is pretty much free now.
Yeah, I see it down to $30, and I think once it gets to $20, I'm going to pick up one for my office. I have one at home. Our first episode was about modding it, and it's so easy. I think I could leave one at the office too, for break time and stuff.
Next article was from me. It popped up on my feed, and it's from TechCrunch. It's a write-up inside Atari's Rise and Fall, and it's a pretty long read. It kind of goes into some of the nostalgia of Atari, and it mostly goes into the fall, but it really dives into also rivalries at the time, like with Mattel, and it obviously pokes fun at the Pac-Man port.
Yeah, which I will still say is a fun port. I actually enjoy the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man. Actually, The Rise of Atari, I think the book Atari Business is Fun by Marty Goldberg is a really, really great, very long, but very great story of the rise of Atari. I think he at some point talked about doing a follow-up to it that got more into the fall part probably. But yeah, it's a pretty good summary. I mean, there's the fall of Atari was a very long process. I don't think it was really complete till 1996.
Yeah, and it's like they were trying at one point to make it fail, especially when it broke into two companies. The at-home division and the arcade division. It was just kind of done at that point. But yeah, this will be up on our show notes, so definitely check that out if you're interested in it. Next one was also from me. The Atari XL Portable did exist. Now, this is on Atari Age, which is in the forums part of it, and we have this linked here. And when I first looked at this, well over a week ago, there were photos, but now the photos aren't there anymore.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like someone found pictures of what would have been, and it was kind of like an Apple IIc, but for the Atari XL. Like it came with an LCD screen. Now that the photos aren't here anymore, it's really hard to tell what this was about. So if any listeners have any insight, or they save the photos, please send them to us.
So let me see if I can find this photo. I get these email alerts on upcoming estate sales in the area, and I have like keywords and blah blah blah, and of course I have a lot of like alert me for video game terms or other things in them. And one of these came up with an Atari Portfolio computer. So when you said portable Atari, that's originally what I pictured. So Atari made something called the Portfolio, which was a portable 16-bit computer, but it was small. It was like the size of a Subway 6-inch sandwich, basically. And it was like a 280. It was like a portable 286, I want to say. This sale's not for another week. I'm half tempted to go there to see what they want for this thing. These are like $500 on eBay. I looked at that. I was just curious. So they're quite a rarity. But the sale also has a whole pile of like Walkman, which I don't need. But also then a big stack of Nintendo games that I think are all duplicates for me. So maybe I won't go. Who knows? Last thing I need is more duplicate Nintendo games.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah. At that toy show this weekend, I just stopped myself. Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming to the Xbox One for free next year. And it looks like, I mean, it doesn't look like it is not the original. It is an update.
It's an update, yeah. Now, I always get Phantasy Star Online 2 confused with Phantasy Star Online version 2.
Oh, I didn't know there was a difference.
Well, Phantasy Star Online version 2 was definitely released in America because I have a copy right here in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
So this was the one that I believe was not released in the US.
Okay, all right. And we are going to have a future episode about playing Phantasy Star Online in 2019 or whatever year it is when we do the episode. But
yeah, that's a good one. That's a good future topic, yeah, because there are people running Phantasy Star Online servers.
Yeah, and it's a science project trying to get your image updated to actually work on those. But yeah, I'm excited for that. I don't know if I'm gonna dive into this though, mostly because I don't have time to get into online games right now. There are so many big games and hundreds of retro games that I want to play that this just, I'll be honest, it's not going to make the cut, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they're doing it. Do you think this is something you'd be interested in?
No. I've only played Phantasy Star Online offline because I don't really like playing online games.
Mm-hmm. But who knows? One of our listeners might be interested in this, and yeah, I'm definitely going to keep looking at future trailers for this, and I'll watch some gameplay online, but I don't think I'm going to dive into this. Even for free. They can't give it away.
All right. Commander Keen resurrected as a mobile game. Another E3 announcement. So we still haven't made it past E3 yet.
Yeah, and another remake or reimagining, I guess it is. To play this, I have to put in my age. There's a video of Commander Keen, which is kind of strange.
Oh. Well, make sure you lie.
Yeah. But, yeah, I keep also meaning to have Commander Keen as a game of the episode. But, now that this is out, I kind of don't know if I want to anymore. This doesn't interest me at all. Mostly because it's on a phone.
Yeah. Yeah, I generally don't like playing action games on the phone. Throughout the years, there have been a number of puzzle games I like on the phone, but very rarely do I find an action game that I can tolerate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this just doesn't feel like something that needed to happen because, I mean, listeners, anyone, correct me if I'm wrong, but someone who's of the age of mostly playing games on their phone probably doesn't know what Commander Keen is. So it's not like the name would pull any weight, you know? I guess someone had to use this IP for something?
Yeah.
Bethesda, I guess it would be. Okay, so our next story is pretty much how it's two links. One's from PC World, the other is from a Google Doc. So I am one of the suckers that bought the Atari VCS in the original Indiegogo. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited that this is actually a thing. And that's what the story is they were at E3, people could touch it, they opened it up, mm-hmm. They gave out the real specs. It's a Ryzen 2, or is it? It's an R1606G processor, so a dual 2.6 gigahertz, boostable to 3.5. It has 4 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs if you buy the 800 model, which I actually thought was kind of funny how they use the 400 and 800 numbers again. So I got the email about this from them, and when you click on it, all it does is bring you to this Google sheet that or Google Doc that I have linked in our show notes, which I thought was kind of funny. And then PC World dives into this a little bit more. And really what it comes down to is it's closest to a Steam box that is mixed with an Ouya, or...
Well, it's the price of a PlayStation 4 Pro for, I believe, substantially less hardware.
Oh, at least 6 cores, yeah.
And substantially fewer third-party game developers. I don't know. Like, what they were originally describing to me sounded like a $99 system.
Absolutely.
Like a souped-up Ouya. Which, maybe it's a bargain at that price. If maybe, I don't know. The problem is, who's going to develop for this system?
Other than Earthworm Jim 3.
Yeah, that's the other one, right? That's the foot bath system by Intellivision.
Oh, I got it confused. Yeah, that's not even on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is things with the Atari brand name on them. So, let's see. That's Space Invaders, Roller Coaster Tycoon. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so you have kind of a... Wait, Space Invaders wasn't an Atari game, was it?
No, that was Taito.
It was Taito.
Taito.
Yeah, so...
Gauntlet.
They still, I believe, own the rights to Roller Coaster Tycoon. So you got that, and a bunch of other stuff that's like got, that you have other versions of on other collections. I mean, this is a lot of hardware to play like the Atari Classics collection.
Well, and so one of the quotes from this PC World article is from them saying, we want to democratize the world of ROMs and emulators for people who don't want to go out and search for stuff. So pretty much this is a turnkey more powerful Raspberry Pi type system. I guess I should say RetroPie type system.
Yes, I guess. And
it has its own Atari own OS that's built on Linux, but you could also boot any OS to it, even Windows. So this is an emulation machine, and overpriced. I mean, you get the nice sticks and stuff like that, but...
Yes, I guess if you want a wired joystick with one button, then this is the system for you.
Yes. So, yeah. I emailed them and got no response saying, I was an early backer. Which system will you be shipping me, the 400 or the 800? And we already know the answer to that.
Yes, I don't know why you would question that at all. Who knows what you're going to get?
You're absolutely right.
Probably not the 800 Onyx all-in retail exclusive, because that's a retail exclusive.
So yeah, that's the other part of the story. You can now pre-order these at Walmart and GameStop.
Yeah, if you want to spend $400, you can get this.
Or you could get a PS4 Pro and a PS3 to put an emulator on, and probably a Vita. Yeah.
You could definitely get a PlayStation 4 Pro and a DS for the same price.
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah.
Which would definitely have you covered for a while. They both have the luxury of having games, which are kind of the key to selling a game system.
Yeah, and I understand, and I am one of the people who say, like, this thing is going to fail, and even though it's out, it still doesn't mean it's not a scam. But I will stick up for the Intellivision one until I get it. And
yeah, I'm remaining cautiously optimistic on the Intellivision one for now. Other than I think the system itself is pretty horrible looking, like the design of the console unit itself.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Atari is actually ahead of them in terms of console design. Like, I think they put a lot of effort into let's make something that looks aesthetically cool.
Yeah, then they pretty much said, okay, now what?
And I think the Amico so far seems to be focused a little bit more on maybe we should get some good games on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have a specific market. But yeah, unfortunately, this will probably be in our news in the future.
Yes, unfortunately it will. A bunch of other retro adjacent games announced over at E3. Which ones did you want to call it here? Obviously, more info on the Link's Awakening remake. That's been around for a while. Secret of Mana stuff. Some, I guess, previously unreleased Mana games will be out on Switch.
And Panzer Dragoon Reveal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's also being revived, too.
Yes,
so
yes.
You're technically correct.
And this is... I can't tell if this is updated graphics or a reimagining of it.
They have to update the graphics, because, I mean, I have a Saturn hooked up to a modern TV. The style of graphics in Panzer Dragoon doesn't hold up well on a larger screen.
Oh, the graphics are definitely updated. I just don't know if
there
they
has to be
added
some
more.
sort of remaster. Did I see Final Fantasy VIII remastered on this list too? I'm pretty sure I saw that on one of these articles. So that's cool.
IGN
if you like Final Fantasy VIII. And there was some stuff on the Final Fantasy VII remake, but I'm still pretty skeptical on that because they're only showing stuff from like the first chapter of Final Fantasy VII. So it makes me concerned that they are in fact going the route of making Final Fantasy VII into 4 games and charging you $60 for each of these 4 installments rather than just making a game called Final Fantasy VII.
Now. Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm just skeptical of that because everything they've shown is only from that first world.
Yeah.
It's only from like the Midgar chapter of the game.
Oh, one thing I wanted to call out in this IGN article we're looking at, Animal Crossing is coming out the same week that the Atari VCS is coming out. So I have a feeling more people would rather spend their money on it. Now, I've never been in Animal Crossing, but I think more people would spend their money on that than Atari.
Yeah. Both my kids will get Animal Crossing.
Yeah, none of them will get an Atari.
So it's already up 2-0 at my house.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so a lot of cool stuff there. And we're still not done with E3. Arcade 1UP, who does those little, I don't even know if they're 3/4 size, arcade cabinets you could buy at Walmart, release a TMNT cabinet that has Turtles and Turtles in Time. It released a fighter cabinet. I guess it's a Capcom cabinet, right? With Marvel vs. Superheroes, X-Men, Children of the Atom, and Punisher. Yeah, so it's a Marvel cabinet. And the reason I put this article up here, this is on bleedingcool.com, a Star Wars arcade cabinet with Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, which I might, when those drop in price, get one for the office.
Yeah, I saw they did a Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty tempting, I have to admit, but I don't have room for it. I'd have to, tear down one of my bathrooms or something to make room for this thing. Like, there's really no place in my house I could put that cabinet right now.
Just have all your kids share a room. They'll understand that you need more space for games, right?
Yeah, they'll be really
it's totally fine with that idea.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And the other problem with these things are they're just not tall enough. I mean, have you seen one of these in person?
Yeah, but they build stands for them, which makes them not tall enough, but almost tall enough.
They're almost tall enough for an adult, yes, with the stand. So, yeah, I don't know why they can't make them taller. I guess, I mean, they're probably, is it just particle board they're using? I don't whatever. I won't get into it. Like, that's the other blocker. Like, I just can't picture myself
hunched over.
Playing hunched over Mortal Kombat 2.
But the Star Wars one shocked me, and I want to go on the record now that because they got, Star Wars is a Disney IP now, because they got that, I predict a Tron cabinet.
I predict not, because I don't know what you would bundle that with.
Deadly Discs. You got 2 games there.
Oh, you got 2. Yeah, that's true. Maybe.
We'll know. Yeah, hopefully next E3.
What is this crazy ZX Spectrum story you have here?
Versions, you mean?
Yeah, what is this?
Okay, so this was on... I got this from the Apple II Enthusiast group on Facebook, which I am a proud member of. Versions is a new app for your Atari GS, for GS OS, that will look through all your applications, just like you can in Windows or Ubuntu Software Manager, and tell you if you're at the latest versions and update for you. And it is something very useful because there are so many versions of a lot of these apps, and you never know. Like, you have to check, weekly or monthly. And this does all that work for you. And this could not have been easy to program. If anything, because someone has to keep this up to date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you are an Apple II GS enthusiast, come on, we have to have at least one listener who is. This is for you, and it is for me. It's just called Versions. Very, very cool. I did question him a little bit, the author, and he said other operating systems are not planned right now, but are possible. So maybe like ProDOS or something like that. But I think this next one is yours.
Yeah, we're not done with E3 news. So the non-gaming site Slate did a E3 story for some reason, even though they don't usually do video game stuff. And other articles called "The Coolest Thing at This Year's E3 Just Might Be This Atari Video Music System from 1977." And yeah, this is like a piece of stereo equipment that Atari made. This has got like a visualizer in it. So you play music through it, and then it creates psychedelic screens. They did a thing like this on the Jaguar CD also.
And it looks like... So are these knobs... These knobs don't do anything to the audio. This thing doesn't do anything to the audio. It only creates the visuals.
Right. So sorry, I was describing it like it was a receiver. It's not a receiver. It's to, change the effects on the screen. And I would definitely love to own one of these. I would have it hooked up 24/7.
Oh man, I would love to have this thing. It's beautiful. I mean, it looks like it was born in the 70s.
Yeah. I gotta start make sure when I go to like old estate sales and thrift stores to start looking for stuff for this. I always check like the VCR section because that's where you find stuff like a Philips CDI usually, because it just looks like a CD player and it just kind of gets crammed in DVDs and CD players. This would be like, for all I know, I've walked past one of these before and didn't even know what I was looking at.
Oh, absolutely.
I like to think I would have seen the Atari logo and thought something of it, but all the wood grain and the knobs, I might have just walked right by it.
If you scroll all the way down, Ben Heck does a teardown of this. That's funny. Of course he does.
Yeah, there's probably like 25 cents worth of electronics in it.
Yeah. And then there's a Daft Punk video. Do they use one?
Seems like something they would do.
Oh, Devo uses it in the background of one of their videos. Yeah, yes they do.
New Kickstarter for a new Genesis game that I think looks worth backing. It's called Switchblade. It's a combination Genesis game, and they also want to do a action figure series to go along with it. So whole new IP. They're not looking for a lot of money, but they haven't hit it yet for some reason. They're looking for $8,500. And they've raised $7,000, and it's by a group of was a game. I guess it's an unfinished game, so it was started by Core Design and Unfinished, and then Pico Interactive picked up the rights to it, and they have a pretty good track record. Like, I've never seen them not deliver something that they've said they're going to deliver. So.
And we were just talking about this toys and video games. This is, this could ignite that crossover episode I was talking about with Nerd Out.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure what's the right. There's a lot of different pricing tiers, but to get the Sega Genesis game, it's $45. They're also going to do a Jaguar version for $60, and then bundles that include, the game and figures and all that stuff. But like overall, I think I have a pretty good opinion of Pico Interactive, so I can always recommend backing one of their projects. I don't know if I'll back this one. I mean, it looks like kind of a fun game. Don't know if I would play it a lot though. It's kind of the downside to it. Like it's kind of a side-scrolling. I guess I'll call it a platformer. Sort of a combat platformer game. I think graphically it looks pretty good. I think it would have been a pretty successful game back in the day.
Totally. And the problem with these action figures are, there's no problem with them, but if you have them displayed someplace, someone's going to ask you what they are, and you'll pretty much just say, it's from something you've never heard of. So
it's from this unreleased Genesis game that I backed on Kickstarter.
Yeah. You'd get a blank stare back as a response.
Yeah. I did hear that Kickstarter is going to start, cracking down on projects that call themselves the ultimate or the best.
Good.
Because every project is that, the ultimate flip-flop or whatever. That's a project I just made up right now.
I do know in Kickstarter you need to call out if something's a 3D render. You can't try to pull it off as this thing's already built.
Yeah, overall Kickstarter is more credible than Indiegogo. That doesn't mean a Kickstarter project can't fail. I mean, I backed projects. I backed that controller that was garbage. And I talked last week about Tanglewood and how, the Genesis game got delivered and was a good game, but now, the creator has to back out and refund people who bought the Dreamcast version, which is disappointing. I mean, the core of what he wanted to deliver got delivered, but whatever. I've had projects that just didn't turn out, but with Kickstarter, you generally have a better chance of that project turning out than I'm not sure if I ever backed an Indiegogo project, but so many of the ones that are train wrecks go to Indiegogo.
Yeah, well, that's where Atari did theirs, so there you go.
Indiegogo. If you have a half-baked dream and a computer, you can launch Indiegogo.
Yeah, it should be called Indie No-Go because so many fail.
Yeah.
Next article. 25 years ago, the Super Game Boy reinvented Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah.
And this is on Kotaku, and they did. So Super Game Boy added some colors and a few other features. And this is about that release. It was released with Donkey Kong 94, which is what it's not called. It's just called Donkey Kong, but everyone refers to it as Donkey Kong 94. And I know I've played this, but I mean, it's been since 95 since I've played it. This article also has this comic strip. I don't know if this was part of the release of Super Game Boy. I'm assuming you have one of these, right?
A Super Game Boy? Yes.
Yes.
And the Donkey Kong? Yes. Yes to both. This is a pretty good... it's Donkey Kong, but with much more... more advanced levels and more variety of levels. This is a really fun game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And then there've been some sort of sequels to it. There's these Mario versus Donkey Kong games that are similar, but not exactly the same. But yeah, I highly recommend this game.
But, God, it's hard to believe that was 25 years ago. But, yeah, it was. I remember when this came out thinking, why do I need this? And it's funny because the comic strip calls that out. It's kind of Nintendo getting ahead of that. But again, I can't tell, and I've read this article, if this comic strip is new for some reason, or if this was part of the marketing material.
Well, it's created by someone named Greg Mello, who does have a Twitter page. So I think this might, in fact, be... Well, let's look at his Twitter. Oh, dang it. I went to go to Twitter. It's asked me to log in. I'm not going to log in. I don't have an account. Check out this comic I wrote and illustrated for Kotaku. Okay, so this is
There
a
you
new...
go. This is...
That's why he's wearing the Super Mario Odyssey suit.
Yeah.
I thought Nintendo had a very, very long game plan.
Could you
for Mario's
imagine?
tuxedo.
Yeah. That would be mind-blowing if that was the case. But I never owned a Super Game Boy. I just had friends that did. And I remember playing this in the store as well.
That was it. That is it for news. We're up to Project of the Week. Or of the episode, since we established it's not weekly.
So yeah, this one was your idea. The PiCart.
Yeah, this is a fun little project. So this is a do-it-yourself project where you put a Raspberry Pi inside of a NES cartridge. I would only worry about ventilation because sometimes the Pi can get hot when it's doing some really intensive work. But I suppose Nintendo emulator is maybe not going to stress it that much.
In the video, he does recommend one of the
sticking a heatsink on
yes.
it, right? Yes. Yeah. So I think the Pi Zero is probably the model this is going to be easiest with. So there's a little bit of advanced like soldering work, a little more. I don't say soldering, but I mean, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not. You've got to be able to like work well with a Dremel and a glue gun to make this all kind of work well, because you're essentially putting a Raspberry Pi Zero in a very kind of confined space, and sometimes you have to carve out a little bit of space for it. But like overall, other than you destroying a perfectly good NES cartridge, there's not too much to it. And it's sort of like I said, I think these things visually look very cool. And my only problem with this is like the projects you'd want to do, like the cartridges you'd want to use would also be cartridges you didn't want to trash.
Yeah.
Like this would look really cool with a, Legend of Zelda Gold cartridge. So unless you have a spare one though, you're probably not gonna do it. Now, like I had mentioned, like, dremeling and stuff, like there's not a lot of stuff you really have to cut out of the cartridge, but sometimes to make room, you might want to, trim away some of the plastic inside. But overall, everything pretty much fits in there. It's just really tight.
Yeah, mostly the cables are really, really bent tight in there.
And a related project to which I did not check out yet, that is very hard for me to believe is possible, but is the Retro Pi inside a Super Nintendo controller.
My buddy did this. He said it works great. He did it inside of a NES controller. And there's an Etsy site or something like that you buy a new bottom of your NES controller. It makes it just, a few millimeters or whatever thicker. So it all fits in there.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat that's I'm looking at that one right now. I didn't look at it before the show. Like I said, I prefer to be unprepared. And that is pretty cool. It just basically gives you a plug and play Super Nintendo at that point.
And he also has an image here of a Pi Zero W on a Game Boy game. And they're the exact same size width-wise, so that might be possible as well. I don't know where you'd put all the cables. But this thing's cool if you want, to have something in your living room and have it be a little conversation piece. It has built-in Bluetooth, and the Pi Zero W, the W means Wi-Fi, so it has Wi-Fi. So, you can connect your 2.4 gigahertz controllers or your Bluetooth controllers, so you don't need a cable coming out of it. It probably will only be powerful enough to play your NES games, and maybe some of the simpler Super NES games.
Yeah, I haven't really played with the Pi Zero too much. I do have to get a couple though for a not game related project that I got to tackle the next couple of weeks. This is a monitoring thing, systems monitoring thing. I use Raspberry Pis for system monitoring stuff all the time. And I was thinking of using the Pi Zero for it just because they're small and I don't have to, I won't go into it because it's not game related. But I'll probably finally get a chance to play with one of those soon and get an idea for how powerful it is versus, the Pi 3 or whatever.
Yeah, 3B plus. There's so many cool projects like this, and I'm sure many of them will be on this show. And this sparked an idea with me. I don't like the cables coming out of the bottom of this thing. It just looks wrong to me. Mm-hmm. So I thought, what if this thing could just be power? Like, can I just throw this in my Nintendo and have that be the power somehow? But I looked, and the pinouts of a Nintendo only give 5 volt. They don't give 12 volt. So, not possible.
I can't imagine that would work.
Not possible.
I mean, you could gut the Nintendo, right? And
yeah, I figured it'd just be funny. Just only have that, those pins touch, and remove all the other pins or something, or reroute them, something like that. But it's a whole different episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is cool. I'm glad we went over this. And if any of our listeners have built anything like this, or want to share any of your little RetroPie or Raspberry Pi projects, email at retrogameclub.net. And that leads us to Game Club, doesn't it?
It does. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so mine was King of Monsters 2, The Next Thing on Neo Geo. And it is a beat-em-up game where you could pick from 3 different monsters, a kind of Godzilla-like guy, a robot-like guy, and a just kind of a giant. And it's 3-button, kick, punch, and jump, but you can hold down any of those 3 buttons and have a special move. And you kick over buildings, stuff like that, a lot of rampage type stuff. And but it's mostly kind of a boss rush type game where you're just up against all these other monsters who are trying to take over the earth. And it's an okay game. It's really, really difficult, or I am just very bad at it, because it probably would have been about $50 I spent, in quarters on this thing to beat it. Correction, I didn't beat it, because after the last boss, every level's timed, and after the last boss, you have 10 seconds to defeat all these little guys that take 1 hit each. But I wasn't really paying attention. I was just happy I finally beat the last boss. And I didn't do it. And it just said game over. And so I just rage quit the thing, and I watched the real ending on YouTube. This is only available, to my knowledge, on Neo Geo, maybe on a collection or a virtual console, but I really didn't notice it anywhere. And if you're emulating this, or somehow you see it in an arcade, it's definitely worth a play, but I wouldn't spend the money buying this thing. Did you get into this one at all?
It's just a little bit. This is kind of not my style of game. And
it's not easy, right? You just start and you die, right?
Yeah, you start and you die. It's basically it, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like, the Atari game we talked about last week. Pixel Night in Death World. What was it called?
Oh, yeah. I'll look at our show notes.
It was something like that. Pixel Night Dies a Lot or something. So I
Night
downloaded
Guy and
that.
Low Res World.
There it is, yes. So that game is unbelievably hard. That is also like you start and you die. I can't imagine anybody getting through that game without save states.
Yeah.
Completely brutal.
So did you get ROM of this one, or was it on archive.org?
I tried the ROM route.
Okay. Because you got downloaded on your On your Shield, or what was it?
I
What's
put it
your
on the
system?
well. I tried it on the Ouya, and I couldn't get the emulator on there to do anything. But you can fire you can get it to work through MAME. So I ultimately got it to work.
Yeah, because all Neo Geo's, Neo Geo's an arcade system, so it's
Yeah,
fully MAME supported.
yeah. There's just some like dance you have to do to get the BIOS files to work.
Yes, that is
So
true.
all the inconvenience of emulating a Neo Geo, unfortunately. I guess I should just buy one of those systems. I don't want to spend that much. But yeah, I mean, never been into these. I didn't really like King of Monsters 1 very much, and this kind of was no exception, really.
They are very different to me. Not huge, not a lot added. In fact, the graphics looked almost the same to me as well. Nothing wrong with that. It's just the first one didn't have that much to offer. And
Yeah.
this game surprised me too because it's a pretty sought after game. People tend to really like this game, at least on forums and on Clav. And it was okay.
Yeah, it was alright.
And want to get onto your game?
Yeah, there's also a Super Nintendo version that I did not try.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has really like comical box art. This is one of the many games I remember from the box more than from the actual game. Yeah, Dr. Mario. So this is my whenever I am stuck on a problem or something. This is kind of the game that I'll fire up nowadays for 5 minutes just to to clear my head. It wasn't always this way. Like when I first played Dr. Mario years ago, I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I thought it was like a worse version of Columns, and didn't really understand the appeal. But then I don't know, 3 years ago or so, I suddenly really got into Dr. Mario. I'm trying it again. So it's sort of like it's a falling object game, like Tetris or I mentioned Columns, where Mario's a doctor, and he's not a very good doctor because there's this like virus invasion, and all he does as a doctor is just keep throwing pills at the viruses till they go away, right? No other. That's his only course of treatment. I don't know where Mario got his medical license, really. And what you do is the pills are either yellow, blue, or red, and the viruses are yellow. What did I say? Yellow, red, blue. Doesn't matter in the order.
Yeah.
And you have to match up 4 pill colors. The pills come in 2 colors. There's either red and yellow, red and blue, blue and so on, all the different permutations. And you have to line up 4 things in a row. It could be 2 viruses and 2 pills. I guess 3 viruses and 1 pill is possible, although it's pretty rare that you ever get something like that. I think when the game generates the level, it's probably impossible to get 3 in a row of the same color. Or it's extremely unlikely, at least. And once you get 4 in a row, it breaks, and then any like pill halves it was supporting also fall down, so you can create chain reactions. And that's kind of the cool part of the game is like if you're playing for high scoring, you want to create a lot of chain reactions because the longer and more complex chain reactions you create, the higher your score is. And if you play it on like championship mode on NES Remix, right? That's how you rack up a lot of points is through big chain reactions. And it's on a number of systems. I play the NES version. There's a Game Boy version, little tough to tell the colors apart, but not impossible. There's this DS version that is strangely not very good. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, like they scrunch up the screen too much and it's actually really hard to see the game on the DS screen. So I didn't get into that one too much. I think I got it for free. I think it was one of those things where it's like, oh, you bought 3,000 Nintendo games. Here's some Nintendo rewards points or whatever. And I might have picked it up with like Nintendo rewards points or something because I don't ever remember actually saying, that I would like to purchase Dr. Mario on there.
So what did you play this on recently?
NES Classic is what I played on a lot. Unless, of course, I'm, stuck on like, if I'm home and trying to work on a problem, then I might play it on, FCE UX or something. But mostly I play it on the NES Classic at this point. It's a pretty good, it's obviously a perfect port.
Yeah, this one, I like it. I like Tetris better. I mean, you have to compare the two, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
I have a vivid memory of whenever this came out, me going into Atlantis Castle and saying, "Oh man, there's a Mario that's like Tetris. I'll check this out."
Mhm.
So it was the Dr. Mario versus, and I played it for one quarter and said, "Cool, I never have to play that again." And because at the time, I liked faster games, and so this time around, I went back and I played the Versus version. I played the NES version.
Mhm.
They're almost identical. The NES version is the music is a bit wonkier, but you would only be able to tell if you did what I did, which is play them back to back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's not an easy game. It's not impossible, but it's one where you have to sit down and really, really get the feel of it down.
Yeah, I had a hard time with it at first, but now I think it's a pretty easy game. I think it's just a matter of you have to change the way of thinking. If you try and play it like it's Tetris, you're going to do very,
Or
very badly.
yeah, yeah.
Like on the yeah, and I agree. Like Tetris, I think is a better falling thing game. But like on the spectrum, I would put it like obviously below Tetris, but above like definitely above Columns and above Mean Bean Machine and all the other things that are the exact same game as Mean Bean Machine.
Yep, yep.
Which is also a good puzzle game, but I happen to like Dr. Mario better, and it's definitely better than like Wario's Woods, which is the absolute worst falling object game ever made.
I thought about having that as a game club game, and I put it in. Luckily, I put it in. I usually don't do this. I put it in before suggesting it, and thought, "There's no way." No,
Yeah,
that could be like a show ender.
It could be. And there's also Hatris, which is a bizarrely bad take on Tetris. Hatris, like you could best describe as like a mix of like Clax and Tetris. Kind of. I don't know. It's bad.
What might be interesting, and I was only thinking about this because, the Atari guys joke about, there wasn't a Jaguar game by game, and then Shinto came along and made one. What if, someone came along and made a Tetris game by game where it's every single kind of Tetris you could think of?
Yeesh, yeah. Yeah, because you have to play like the two different Virtual Boy Tetris games. One of them is really good, the other one is really difficult.
I guess you would end with Tetris 99, and every time a new Tetris comes out, even after the show's done, do one more episode.
Yeah,
but,
maybe.
But anyway, this is about Dr. Mario.
So yeah, overall, I'm a big fan of this game. I think it's very easy and accessible for people to get to.
What do they do in NES Remix for this?
So NES Remix, there's a couple sort of like training levels, just real basic stuff, and then it just gets to be like, as you get into later stages, it's about like executing combos mostly. Executing big combos, and then the remix stages, they have like viruses move around, like the viruses move left and right while you're playing, and then one where they just like change color at random.
Yeah.
So that one's hard too. Those are the remix stages. But the ones that change color on random, there's a set pattern. Like after every 4 pieces, the yellow ones turn red. So it's some formula like that. So once you figure out the timing, it's not too hard to clear the level. So it's not really random.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. We did get some listener feedback for Game Club. Majors writes, about being tired during the shows. He totally gets about being wiped out. He does, a bunch of different kind of cons where he brings arcade cabinets too, and he gets how tired we could be by the end of the day having to record this show. And yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's funny because it's usually Majors your emails that I butcher, so because I'm so tired. But thank you for understanding. and he calls out the way I pronounce Bezel. It's actually pronounced Bezel. I don't even think it's a Midwest thing to say Bezel. I think it's a Detroit thing, because I obviously started collecting out here, and that's how it was said to me once, and that's how I've been saying it since. It's kind of like how we say pop instead of soda, I guess. If you're from the Detroit area and you want to call me out on being wrong on that, don't, because I'm old. I'm not going to change how I say it. And the way we brought up, I think it was me, getting confused between Ghosts and Goblins and Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
Ghouls and Ghosts, he says, is the second one, and sometimes he feels like we're trolling him on our podcast, which we might be. You don't know that.
Yeah, well, and part of it is also the order I got introduced to these games in. You don't always get growing up. You don't always play these games in the order they were actually released, and then it becomes like a big chronologically confused thing. The Angry Video Game Nerd does some great chronologically confused videos, or has in the past, and definitely the Ghouls and Ghosts, Ghosts and Goblins, and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. That's a prime candidate for chronologically confused.
I didn't realize. I looked this up this week when we got this email. There's like 10 Ghosts and Goblins games.
Yeah, and a lot of them, they have similar names, but they're not really different games. Like, is Super Ghouls and Ghosts isn't really that different than the other versions of Ghouls and Ghosts and Goblins is kind of like the exact same game, but it's a little stripped down, and it's just...
For me, it was... I had a buddy that had Ghosts and Goblins on the NES, and I think Ghouls and Ghosts may have been in the arcade or something, but he thought I was pronouncing it wrong. You know what I mean? He's like, no, it's Ghosts and Goblins. Like, oh, I thought it was Ghouls and Ghosts. Sorry, I must have been wrong, because he had the cart right in front of me, you know? And so for years and years and years, I thought I just kept... You know, it was like a Berenstein Bear Mandela effect kind of thing, where somehow I was just always wrong about what the title of the game was. Anyway, let's see. Oh, he brings up your 3DO emulation topics.
Yeah, 3DO emulation. Someone has a working M2, he mentioned. So the museum area in MagFest, there was a working M2. It only has a couple of game demos. That's interesting. All I've ever seen from the M2 was like a preview tape that we used to run in the store. And it looked kind of neat, but again, like the two games he describes, the demo might have been the only things on the tape as well. It was a very, very small selection there.
For those that don't know, the M2 was going to be the follow-up to the 3DO.
Yes, it was the sequel to the 3DO, because it was very clear that the 3DO could not really compete against the PlayStation graphically. So they created the M2, and that also could not compete against the PlayStation, especially because it was not released.
Yes.
Talking about the 3DO Blaster, notes that the PCFX in Japan had a similar add-on called the PCFX-GA.
Ooh, I did not know that.
Yeah, and they mentioned the homebrew. In the homebrew, the accessibility of homebrew for the PCFX is why that system has the reputation it does today, for being a not particularly family-friendly game library.
Yes, I was trying to think of... I was going to bring up hentai or something, but yeah.
I'm just going to browse. Shark, he recommends the DS version. That's on the Intellivision Lives release. Overall, I did not... The Intellivision Lives release on DS is like... There's a couple of games on it that are kind of unplayable because they weren't ported right. But Shark is good on there, true. Sit-down style cabinets at Youmacon.
Yeah, I mentioned that because that's a Detroit anime convention. And yeah, I have a lot of buddies that go there just for the candy cabs that are there, and it's Majors that brings them, so that's pretty cool.
One of these that he sends, I might consider as a future topic, because he talks about people that have modded the Intellivision flashback, blah, 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 the Intellivision flashback to add more ROMs and HDMI out. So then you can use the, you have the real Intellivision controls from working. We got to save that for later. I want to look at that. Let's put that on the future topic list.
Good idea, yeah.
Do HDMI mod for PC Engine, although he recommends RGB. talks a little about What Remains, which I did play in the past week too. That was a game we talked about last week. It's an okay game. I mean, I think it's a it's a visually really great game, and it's got some very dark humor in it. It reminds me of To the Moon in that it's really like, it's an interactive story game done in the style of like an overhead RPG. So it's more of like a story with, there's no like action, no battle scenes, anything like that. So it's not a bad game. Just tell people what they're getting into. It's like, kind of a fun little interactive story. I'm about halfway through it, and I gotta sit down and just get through the rest of it. There are graphics. It has like these cutscenes that look amazing for NES graphics.
He says it's like a Stranger Things vibe.
Yeah, it really isn't though. When you play it, like the title screen uses like the Stranger Things font, but otherwise, there's kind of no relation. I think they've probably been working on this game for a while and just changed the logo at the last minute, is my guess.
Yeah. Hey.
Because otherwise, it's not really. I mean, it takes place in the 80s, I guess, but that's the extent of the connection to Stranger Things.
Contra sleepovers. So yeah, last episode before I talk about Contra being a sleepover game, when you have your buddies over and you just play a video game all night. He remembers doing that with G.I. Joes and the NES, and so Contra fits nice with that, with G.I. Joes. Ice hockey was one of his go-to competitive ones. Me too. My ice hockey lineup is always two middleweight and two skinny guys. I always win with that.
Also mentions getting a defective AV out for Game Boy Advance directly from China, as in he was in China. So yeah, there's part of me that wants to go like shopping for weird bootleg stuff in China one day. Even though I know like half of what I bring back will explode or set my house on fire, or first one than the other. As for our this episode's games, Dr. Mario says he will almost always play it anytime he sees one set up somewhere. Which there's a few games that are like that for me too. Like I probably wouldn't go buy them, but if I saw them, I would play them. Like Pepsi Man. And says he played a ton of King of Monsters 1.
The reason is funny.
Because growing up, his friend had divorced parents who tried to one-up each other with expensive gifts. So, yeah.
That's a Neo Geo AES with 4 games he got for Christmas. Now, see, so that's like $1,000 Christmas.
I really got the short end of the stick on like the parents, splitting up and one-upping each other on gifts, man. Mine were trying to one-down each other on gifts, I think.
That's funny.
That did not work out for me at all. Jeez. Zach sends us a link to another cool arcade cabinet system. At least it's kind of cool on the surface. So he sends us a link to a thing called Legends Ultimate. So already it can't be on Kickstarter. And but it's not. This is an AtGames arcade system. It has Tron, by the way, which you were just lamenting lack of Tron-ness in other systems. And it's got a pretty good selection. Looks like they licensed a whole bunch of stuff. On the downside, it's an AtGames system. And AtGames, you know what you're getting. That should be their slogan, right?
Yeah. It's like buying a Mr. Pibb instead of a Coke or something. Like, you know what you're getting.
Right, or RC or whatever.
Yeah.
Mr. Pibb. So, like, I'm willing to trust AtGames with a system I buy at Dollar General. I don't know if I'm willing to trust AtGames with a potentially $400 arcade cabinet. So they want $400 for the 44-inch tall version, or $599 for the 66-inch version. What's that in feet? That's still under 6 feet, right?
And
it's 5'6".
I'm trying to get a close-up of this control panel because, yeah, I mean, it has... He brought this up because we were also talking about how it's good just to stick to one kind of control panel, for your cabinet if you build your own. And this has, 2 sticks, 2 spinners, all these buttons,
Yeah. Well, it has to have the spinner because they're including Tron on there.
Yep.
And there must be a Breakout style game on there.
But Tron also has the trigger on the stick, and these don't. So playing Tron on there,
It's going to be different.
yes.
And it's got, I mean, the selection of games they're saying on it is pretty great. It's an ant game system. So,
And what version are you getting too? Because they've advertised arcade versions on the box before, and then you get the NES version or something.
yeah, and a lot of these have NES versions. Not all, like Fix It Felix Jr. does not have an NES version, and Tron does not have an NES version. There is a game called Star Wars on the NES, though. So which Star Wars is on here? I don't know.
And one of the pictures of this thing is it rendered like in a cabinet, like in someone. This is either like a Japanese apartment or a dorm room in America.
This is a page from IKEA.com.
Oh, it is.
I'm pretty sure they just took this from IKEA.
Yeah, probably.
And rendered an arcade cabinet.
And that guitar, look at that guitar. Its neck is, I mean, yeah.
Well, it's leaning back, so maybe that's...
Photoshop fail.
Yeah, so it is stock art. If you go out to a site called pixhere.com, it is Workspace Interior Design Loft.
Nice.
It's like the exact same. So in the original picture, there is like a kind of bench thing where the arcade cabinet is. Otherwise, it's the exact same, completely the same photo.
Zach also said he sent this email by testing out our new email button on Facebook, which is funny. I tested it as well, and it auto creates the email for you. It's just a mail to link, but it auto populates it with put your phone number here, put your question here. I can't change that, so please don't send us your phone numbers.
Don't send me your phone number, please.
Yes.
Anybody ever send me your phone number. And Zach also wants to say that he finally got around to playing Dr. Mario, but he doesn't understand how it can be relaxing because it causes him to get a blood pressure spike. You got to put the music on chill. That's the secret. It's right there. Yeah. Put the chill music. Nah, it's just one of those games. Once you kind of get good at it, it's not very difficult. You almost like just some part of your brain just gets into a Dr. Mario kind of mode, and you I couldn't consciously explain some of the moves while you're playing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It does have a simpler kind of after spin than Tetris does. So that, I mean, I don't think it's as enraging as Tetris actually.
Yeah, I think it's easier. I keep going back to Columns because Columns is maybe the closest game to it. Sort of the closest. I find it to be a lot less stressful than Columns. Columns has always kind of aggravated me. Like I will acknowledge it's a pretty decent puzzle game all around, but something about it, I don't really like playing it for very long.
Yeah, same here. That game, I don't think it's very unlikely it'll be a game club game.
I agree with that. Speaking of which, do you want to talk about, first of all, how can people email us besides the big shiny button on Facebook?
Send us emails about anything, hopefully about game club games, but anything retro related. Email at retrogameclub.net. Email at retrogameclub.net. We don't own the .com. I don't know who does. We have .net.
I don't know. Next games.
I chose Rystar on the Genesis. I randomly fell onto this one, and I do remember it from back in the day. I won't talk about it anymore, but I already started playing it, and spoiler, it's a great game. So Ristar, Rystar on the Genesis. It is on Game Gear too.
Yeah, it's on like all the Genesis collections also. So I'm gonna go with let's go with Faxanadu, which is a Falcom game. Some people call it Xanadu, because it's part of the Xanadu series that Falcom started in the 80s, and this was the Famicom version. I was thinking about it a lot just because I've been playing, one of the more recent games in the in this series, and this series has changed a lot, and I decided I want to go back and try this game again and just see how the series has evolved. Like this, Tokyo Xanadu is the latest game in the series, and the games, like, if you played them, you played one then the other, you would never believe they're the same series. So I kind of want to go back and just, kick the tires on it and see if there is anything that has actually carried over from the old games into the modern series.
Is this on anything modern people could get?
No, I try to pick stuff that's pretty accessible, and this is one of the harder ones. That's not super hard to get. First of all, this is not like a super expensive Nintendo game. It's I think it's been around for a while. I think it's not hard to get, and it's been on like Virtual Console, but it's not on the NES Classic. So this is going to be one. This goes against my theme for the show has been to try and get stuff that's been pretty accessible. This is about as not accessible as I'll pick.
Well, you got to keep it interesting sometimes.
Yeah, and this is just something I'm in the mood to play, just again to see how the series has changed over the years. I'm going to predict that I find almost no similarities between this old game and the modern games.
So, I happened across an extra PSIO, PSIO, which is a kind of SD card. You have to do some soldering, but an SD card upgrade for an original PlayStation. So you could play your PlayStation backups on an SD card. And we will be giving it away as a prize. So each time you email us, you get one entry per show over the next 5 episodes. So I guess that's 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18 episode numbers. At the end, I guess that'd be episode 19, we will choose a winner. So if you are interested in a PSIO, shoot us an email. Again, about anything. Our Game Club games. Retro stuff you're up to. You can make fun of us like Majors does, which I actually appreciate. But yeah, I'll put this up on our Facebook as well. And thank you for Zach for maintaining the Facebook page. Thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for the help with the Facebook page, because I was certainly not ever going to do it. But yeah, I guess that's it. So thanks for listening.